Welcome to the Darcy Wellness Series. During our series, we will present information on complementary and alternative medicine and how these non-drug, non-surgical options can benefit your wellness and help keep your loved ones healthy. Today, we're going to talk about nutrition, obesity, and why quality organic food is so important. My name is Geoff Darcy, and I'm an acupuncturist herbalist at the Darcy Wellness Clinic. And with me in the studio is Yuanling Liu, registered dietitian and acupuncturist and herbalist. Also with me today is Po Harvey Darcy, my wife and partner at the Darcy Wellness Clinic. So Po, we teach together diet and detox and a program called Diet for Life. Tell us about why diet is so important for people. And
well, over the years, yeah.
And why do you make me eat so much brown rice at home?
Well, Geoff and I together, we've been eating healthy and holistically whole foods for about 20 odd years. And over time, we've learned that eating this way is really the first line of defense in terms of keeping yourself healthy. And every spring we do this diet detox program where we teach people not only to detox, but really the underlying philosophy of how to nourish yourself and how to eat food that has energy in it. And food with energy is food that is fruits and vegetables, whole foods with the whole grains, organic meats. And what we've learned is that in a very short time of eating this way, people really have a complete experience of what it feels like to feel healthy. So every year that we do this, it's just reinforced in me how important diet is in terms of how you're going to feel, your mental health, your physical health, your nervous system, keeping your immune system strong. And the studies are showing now that food is really the basic way to stay healthy.
And it's a lot of fun watching people really turn around their health in a 2-week program like that, just by eating good, healthy fruits and vegetables. It's quite dramatic. Right. So, Yuanling, how would you what is good nutrition? Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about nutrition.
Okay. The reason why this nutrition topic exists is that there are many issues in our society that's completely related to nutrition. As we all know, the obesity rate are going up, and there are many diseases. Actually, every disease that you can name it that can all associate to nutrition. Osteoarthritis, heart disease, diabetes. There are many that we can add on to the cause as the basic, as Paul said, the nutrition.
Yeah.
What consists of the good nutrition? It's common sense a lot of times, really.
Something your grandmother would tell you.
That's right. Eat your carrots. The thing is that we need to balance, between, all our food groups, between the grain, we talk about whole grains, the protein, we're talking about eating fresh, chicken, fish, and protein, and also fruits and vegetables. Abundance of different kinds of fruit that will provide enough nutrient for our body.
Let's take a moment and go to our first slide. We've got some slides to cover today. And so the idea of good nutrition, and maybe we could go to our second slide. So the idea of food is fuel. Tell us a little bit about that. Our bodies use what we put in for fuel, and good quality food, nutrients, create good quality energy and cells in our body.
That's correct. And we all hear people commonly saying that we are what we eat.
Yeah.
This is a pretty good statement, because if we put in healthy food, like what Paul said, the whole food, you gain the nutrient and also the energy. And on the other hand, if we eat too much of one thing, fried, then you feel lousy. You give your digestion a lot of work to do, and when you're not digesting, process them well, you feel heavy, sluggish, and no energy.
Brings us to our next slide. The idea of we are what we eat is being borne out statistically through the rates of obesity in the U.S. 58 million people overweight now in the U.S., with 40 million obese. That's really quite remarkable. 3 million morbidly obese. I mean, we are what we eat. So the idea of this being an indictment of fast food, probably, the idea that fast food chains are really promoting this kind of crisis, and that 78% of Americans are not meeting basic activity levels to burn off of the excess fuel that they're taking on board. 25% are completely sedentary, and 76% increase in type 2 diabetes. So tell us, Yuan Ling, tell us a little bit about what you see in a clinical setting and how you work as a dietitian with some of these issues.
Especially when we talk about type 2 diabetes, obesity is a big contributor. What it is that when we have more fat around our body cells, and when the insulin being released after we eating, the pancreas releases the insulin, the body cell doesn't even recognize the insulin present. So
just ignores it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what insulin does is it helps to carry the sugar into the cell, use it as fuel. So once we have more those fat cells around our body cell, and it doesn't recognize insulin coming around, so we have a lot more excessive amount of sugar in our blood, which can lead a lot of clogging.
So the idea of those fat cells not responding or not recognizing the insulin uptake, and stress is also a major impact on those muscle cells as well.
That's correct.
So when you combine the higher rates of stress with the excess of fat cells not responding to it, just completely messes the whole system up.
That's right. That's why heart disease is still #1 killer in the world. In the clinic, there are many people, if they are on the borderline and become diabetic, if they diet and exercise, making sure that eating healthy carbohydrate, which consists of those complex carbohydrate, the whole grains, they can manage better without going on insulin.
So you actually work with them, and give them advice, tell them what kinds of foods to eat in what kind of proportions as well?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And then they can eliminate being on insulin. Once you're on insulin and no any other activity are involved, you might be on insulin for life.
Yeah,
and
so
that's
a life
scary.
sentence, basically. If we could go to our next statistical slide here, which is another scary one, really. 1 in 3 Americans overweight. 1 in 5 of our children are overweight.
Yeah.
And that's pretty sickening when you think that school systems are being paid to put Coca-Cola, Pepsi into the school system, pizzas, We have a situation where our medical elite is telling us that 40% of cancers could be prevented if we got 5 portions of fruits and vegetables, yet many school systems throughout the country are still promoting high sugar drinks and an extremely imbalanced diet. So it's quite a dichotomy. So Po, tell us your work. You work with people who are looking to detoxify and clean, but also lose weight through natural foods as well.
Right. I like to work with people primarily, and I do like to work with mothers and fathers too, so that they can teach their children, primarily to get them to understand that food is energy and that food is fuel. Getting away from the concepts of calories and things like that, even though that's very valid. But just
people torture themselves with those concepts too, and counting every little thing and adding it up.
It's a catch-22. People can never really kind of figure that out. So I like to work with people to think about food as fuel, like we said before, but energy, and looking at food that has, in traditional Chinese medicine, what we would call life force or qi.
Yeah.
So when you think about choosing your food off the grocery store shelves, you're actually looking for food that looks like it has life in it.
Right.
Most of the processed, chemicalized, boxed foods, frozen foods, canned goods are foods that have been sat on the shelf for a long, long time. They've been shipped from here, A to Z.
Right.
Spent a lot of time in transit, not necessarily even grown in our country, or definitely not locally.
So all of these, the fast foods, are
yes,
all an indictment of why we're heading towards higher diabetes, higher weight loss. The book we have here, and maybe you could just pick that up, show the Diet for New America is a great catalog of that. Many people have seen that film on McDonald's, where the guy eats McDonald's around the country for 30 days and blows out his liver enzymes and becomes so dangerous he has to stop within 30 days. I mean,
that's right.
Those are frightening concepts.
So,
people aren't aware of how that's contributing to 540,000 deaths last year in the U.S. due to heart disease, let alone, 450,000 deaths due to cancer.
Well, it's true. People have to kind of go out and find out this information for themselves. They really need to educate themselves. Reading books is a good way to do it, but also experiencing it in your own kitchen by choosing foods that have vitality, and seeing what difference that makes on your own body. Because if the parent knows what it feels like to eat well, if they can see the difference in a week on what a difference it makes to eat like organic broccoli and your several servings a day, then they will have impact when they tell their children to do the same thing.
So let's go to our next 2 slides quite quickly here. Health problems associated with poor diet. We've covered the diabetes, the heart disease, and if we go on to the next one, the cardiovascular disease kills 66% of diabetes. Just because you have diabetes, Yuan Ling, you can do something about it. You can eat more healthily and not lead in so rapidly into heart disease, right?
That's correct. And also the other most common one is neuropathy. That's uncontrolled diabetes will lead to.
Now let's talk about this slide up here. We've got the adult affected. So the dark blue lines here, Yuan Ling, represent the underweight, right? So that we can see that globally there's millions of people underweight, but more people overweight. Then we can come to the least developed countries and developing countries, economies in transition and developed countries at the end. So we can see that as we get more developed, we get more overweight. More commercialized, more industrialized diet equals a greater body mass index. If we could go to the next study just to follow that point up, without getting too crazy here with charts and stuff, the idea that over 66% are overweight or obese. This is in the U.S., I take it, right?
That's correct.
And then 33% obese. Maybe you could describe the scary idea of this line going upwards every single year since the early 80s and probably before, right?
Right. And if you take a look at the next slides.
Here we are, on to the next slide.
Especially this is showing the trend in child and also adolescent. Look at how steeply it's going up.
That's alarming, really. When you're going along from 1971 to 1988, it's going up, but steadily, but then a very steep incline. What's happening there, you think?
It's unfortunately our society as a developed country. We know this is a global problem. However, it's more pronounced in a developed country. We have so much resource that's available. Our schedule are very busy, and so
the idea of stress preventing the insulin interference, and then we have the overeating and unhealthy foods, lack of exercise. All of this is culminating in these figures, but it's most alarming because we see these kind of increases, these sharp uptakes in these figures. That has an enormous consequence for the U.S. society, our U.S. society, over the next couple of decades, right? The idea that all of those attending illnesses are really going to be burdening the whole medical system, much less the amount of suffering that's going to happen from illnesses related to that.
So, I think our job here is to provide the information so people start awareing, because when you're preventing, it's much more efficient. It's much more, less suffering, as you said, so that you don't have to take a drastic change. For example, somebody gain weight up to 400 pounds, then your option is a gastric bypass, and that's leading to not very good quality of life, and there will lead to a lot of digestive issues, and it's not a solution to solve obesity. So prevention is our, the key in nutrition.
Let's do one more slide. We are doing these statistics to death, but I think it's really interesting to show how we're doing ourselves to death by the amount of overeating and the quality of food that's going on and all of the attending. Now, this is a fascinating one here. I mean, I remember seeing a lecture where they showed it from 1980, state by state across the U.S., every year massive increases. So just describe this for us a bit here. So Colorado, the blue state there, has a 15 to 19% increase. Over what period of time is that?
This is reflecting currently.
This is current. Okay.
16 to 20% are overweight in that
Colorado.
Population, right?
Then next we can see those kind of beige states. They're 20 to 24% overweight. Then we have the red states. There's no political statement, but just rather 25 to 29% increase in body weight. And then finally the 30 to 34% in the red. And that looks like it's Louisiana and the state next to Louisiana. Anyway, they're really putting on, they're packing it on down there.
West Virginia.
So all their fried chicken, probably. But the bottom line is then, so as a society, we have to try to make a change, and make a change beginning first with ourselves and our families.
Absolutely, yes.
So, Poet, this is an issue I know you feel very passionate about. You've been making me eat natural foods for 18 years. And the reason I am healthy is probably what we get fed at home. But how can we express that more to people? How do we get the word out about what is a good diet?
Well, I think it's a paradox, because for some people, eating healthily seems so difficult because there's so many choices out there, there's so much confusing evidence, there's so many different diet fads. But honestly, I really feel like it's a very simple thing to do. And if you start to eat in a balanced way, you start to eat whole foods, fresh fruits and vegetables, no more processed foods. If you take out things like trans fats out of your diet.
So the idea of real food, like
real food.
In this book here, is it pulls the concepts together very well. It's basically the real food revival, the idea of real food not being processed in any shape or way. Give us some examples of what real food is.
For example, you could have for breakfast, you could have a bowl of fruit, you could have a bowl of oatmeal or grains with a sliced banana on it. You could have
nothing out of a can, nothing out of a box. They're all chopped and
it's actually
cooked right
probably how you were fed as a kid.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for convenience foods, we've gotten away from actually chopping our own vegetables and cooking slowly over a cooker instead of zapping it in the microwave. Which, by the way, I'm very against.
Like?
Lunch could be a nice cup of soup, with lots of vegetables in it. A salad. There, you got 3 or 4 servings of vegetables right there. You definitely want to add some protein and some whole grain. So you could add bread or rice or noodles or
dinner.
Same thing. I would have some protein, like organic chicken or fish, some kind of fish. You could do plant-based protein, which would look like tofu, rice and beans combination with vegetables. Yeah. And I like to have raw vegetables with cooked vegetables. And I like to, over the week, I would like to have as many different kinds of fruits and vegetables as you can throw in there.
So let's, how do we know that would be a good diet? That's some of the questions I'm often asked at the Darcy Wellness Clinic from my patients. And my answer is, what I draw from is the 30-year Harvard-based study on the Okinawans. Okinawa is an island south of Tokyo, about 1,000 miles in the Pacific. And they have 80% less estrogen-receptive cancers. They have 80% less heart disease than the U.S. They have the highest levels of antioxidants in the blood of any culture in the world. They have the longest-lived men in the world, and they narrowly lost out the longest-lived women to Nagano, that eats a very similar diet in southern Japan. And all this adds up to them having the highest number of centenarians in the world. So this Harvard study went there and they said, well, what are they eating? What does this health come from? And they found, interestingly, that under 50 years of age, they had the same disease rates as the U.S. because on Okinawa, we have a lot of troops, we have a lot of fast food, American fast food chains there. So under 50, they have the same rates as the U.S. But above 50 years old, those eating the traditional Okinawan diet are the ones that have all the health benefits. And what are they eating? They break it down to 9 to 13 portions of mainly vegetables a day. They break it down to the amounts of fish and seaweed and 30 milligrams of soy isoflavonoids, mainly from tofu and tofu fermented cheeses and many other types of things. So there is this body of evidence building, and also from the Mediterranean diet, that a diet rich in real food, unprocessed food, with a high portion of fruits and vegetables is a healthy diet. So we're starting to see from those statistics. So how do we get more vegetables into people, Yuanling? I saw another study on the utilization of Medicare based upon the only factor in the study was the portions of fruits and vegetables. And they started at a quarter portion. The quarter portion of fruits and vegetables a day had the highest utilization of Medicaid and Medicare. And then it went up half a portion, 1 portion. The studies stopped at 2 portions. So that's a scary thought, somebody eating a quarter portion of fruits and vegetables a day. How do we get more fruits and vegetables?
The thing is that we have to understand how important it is. You know, a lot of us very into buying the best lotion and cosmetic product to make ourselves look better. But on the other hand, if you know, fruits and vegetables provide all your antioxidants, your vitamins. That's what it keeps your skin shiny, your hair smooth.
And that's a good point. Somebody will spend $50 on a skin cream, and then choose to save money on non-organic produce in the vegetable market.
Right, so it's unfortunate. So when we understand that, our body needs this in order to be healthy and functioning, efficiently, we know this is important. Just like we have to brush our teeth every day, that's a necessity. So, you make an effort and make, choosing different fruits each time in a short period of time, that adding one at a time, and reward yourself that you are making an improvement, you're making one step towards more healthy eating. And gradually you feel that you feel better, Fruits and vegetables have a lot of fiber that will keep the bowel regular. A lot of people have a constipation problem and, not enough GI motility. All of those can be solved by eating a little more fruits and vegetables.
Right, little. A lot, like that. Especially a quarter. I mean, a lot of people think some ketchup is a portion of vegetables. If we could go to our next couple of slides here, we have, actually we're trying to get to the healthy diet recommendation, so if we could go to 2 more along the line. We'll drop that for now, it's a complicated one. That's there we go. So the idea of 5 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables, organic where possible. So we'll talk about that after. Complex carbohydrates, less meats, more chicken, more fish, beans, and use sugar, sweets, red meats, and white starch sparingly. So I know you've been chomping at the bit to get to this one. Why organic food versus non-organic?
Okay. People say to me all the time, why organic? It's so expensive. And I say to them, you're really getting much more bang for your buck. For example, conventional produce, studies have shown it has 50% or more less nutrients than organic produce. And it's declining. So basically you're buying a broccoli.
So why is that? Why is it less?
Why is that?
The farming techniques?
Agribusiness, agri-farming, the topsoil has been depleted over and over. Decade upon decade without being replenished.
So not
in
replenishing
the
soil,
ways.
not taking the vitamins from the soil.
So the plants that are grown in this depleted soil is not extracting the nutrients. So therefore you've got basically a shell of a vegetable. There's no substance to it. Add on top of that the amount of pesticides added to each crop. And
these chemicals, they come into us too, right?
And it's not just one pesticide. It's not just one. Minimum of 5 to 10 different pesticides are added to each crop.
So those pesticides are polluting the land, but then they're on the produce that we take, so they're coming into us as well.
And the pesticide limits, safety limits, are geared towards a 155-pound adult male, and they're measured per pesticide. They're not measured for the large numbers of pesticides that are added. And then when you add that to a pregnant woman, anyone under 155 pounds or children, you're really talking about very high toxicity levels.
Yeah, and that toxicity gets very scary. If we could go to our next slide on why organic.
Puts us in a bind because you want to get your fruits and vegetables in, but you don't want to
So children are
compound your pesticides.
Very susceptible to.
That's right.
Yeah, and our other slide, fresher tastes better. A lot of the gourmet restaurants are using organic produce now because it tastes better.
It tastes better because it has nutrition in it.
Yeah.
And
so organic also supports these farming practices. You want to buy
organically because you're supporting healthier farming practices, which is going to help everybody. Because the other side of it, all of the cattle and everything raised on fields that are sprayed with pesticides, they're accumulating these pesticides in their bodies.
So why non-GMO, genetically modified organisms?
Well, genetically modified organisms is still, the jury's not out on that. Europe bans all GMO foods. America is very slow on that. And they still don't know the ramifications of genetic
allergies.
Yeah, food allergies.
Yeah.
You know,
They're
all of the
tinkering
corn
with billions of years of evolution of those plants.
all of the corn grown in this country is genetically modified. So unless you go organic, you are having
80% of the soy now
whether
is
you know
genetically
it.
modified.
Yeah, people don't even realize that they're actually getting genetically modified.
If we could go to our next slide,
food.
the idea that these phytonutrients that are in the fruits and vegetables, containing antioxidants, you have in our next slide, it'll show you that the idea that vegetables are powerful. And our next slide again.
I think you deleted that
Oh,
one.
yeah. The idea that these phytonutrients, we have sulforaphane in broccoli, a proven anti-cancer compound. We have allicin in garlic. We have lycopene in tomatoes, and major anti-cancer. Beta carotene. One study sticks in my mind. It was done in China before they were moving the produce around the country. So people used to eat only what was grown there. And they found that they tested, it had some of the worst soil on earth. And they were growing the vegetables there, and they were so nutritionally depleted. They went there, and they had the highest rate of stomach cancer in the world. And they gave people different combinations of supplements. And one supplement, I think, was beta-carotene, selenium, and vitamin E. And that decreased in 2 years the rate of cancer against the control group by 18%. So the idea, the point being, the plants are only as good as the soil,
Right.
and how well you take care of the minerals and nutrients in the soil that pull up into the plants. So the nutritional gold of plants are really in the phytonutrients of the soil. So what are the most important foods to buy organically? We have to do it quickly.
There are crops that have a much heavier load of pesticides than others. So the ones that you should absolutely buy organically are strawberries, and these are particularly important for children, bananas, peaches, cherries, nectarines, apples, grapes, melons, red raspberries. For vegetables, bell peppers and all of your leafy greens, spinach, green beans, tomatoes, and cucumbers.
Quite a list, because a lot of those are grown outside the country. There's
I would
all
just
kinds
go
of bad stuff on them.
100% personally.
Yeah.
And then when you get to your grains, rice, corn, whole wheat, and oats.
Great. Well, thank you very much, for both of you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for joining us today in our series on wellness. Yuan Ling, dietitian, acupuncturist, and herbalist. Po Harvey Darcy, my partner in health at the Darcy Wellness Center. And from myself, Geoff Darcy, we want to wish you and your loved ones health and wellness.
Well done, Geoff.
It's a lot to get
We're
in. Oh,
yeah.
boy.
looking